After getting ripped to shreds by my advisor during our lab meeting, I sent my online boyfriend a thigh pic to cope. Do it for mistress right now. I looked up. My usually cold, stoic, and sharp-tongued advisor suddenly cleared his throat tight, and the tips of his ears turning bright red. Intrigued, I peeked at his phone screen. Right there, clear as day, was the exact message I had just sent. Oh my God! I froze, utterly dumbfounded. But my stupid, disobedient fingers had already dialed his number for a video call. The buzzing of Kevin's phone vibrated through the suffocating silence of our lab meeting. I never in my wildest dreams would have guessed that my cold-blooded, ruthless advisor was the same online boyfriend who whined and called me mistress in my DMs. Kevin's finger hovered over the screen. My heart leaped into my throat. Was he actually going to pick up? Please pick up. Just do it. Only 10 minutes ago, he had publicly humiliated me, calling the 5th draft of my thesis complete garbage. Once he realized I was his mistress, there was no way he would block my graduation. Oh, thank God there was hope for my degree after all. I sat up straight, trying to look composed. The next second, the call was declined. My contact, 6 feet 1 inch rich idiot 8-pack, a nickname I gave him, sent a flurry of texts. Baby, I'm in a lab meeting. It's not convenient right now. I'll call you later.
Okay.
Transfer $5,200. Puppy loves you. GIF. I froze, the grin still plastered on my face. Suddenly, Kevin's sharp voice shattered my thoughts. Iris, what are you smirking at? I gasped, jerking my head up. I met Kevin's cold, piercing gaze. He looked absolutely furious, staring at me with zero intention of saving my dignity. When you joined this department, you had no major research experience and barely any academic background. I didn't even want you in my lab. Your counselor practically begged me, saying you were a promising student with raw potential. And look at you now. Your experiments are a disaster. Your writing is absolute nonsense. You don't contribute a single word in meetings. And now you're playing on your phone. Do you not want to graduate? Oh no. I was in deep trouble. My chest tightened with panic. The other students held their breath, their eyes darting toward me in unison. Some looked sympathetic, others confused, and a few just seemed relieved it wasn't them. I had always been a straight A student, sailing through my undergraduate years on a sea of compliments from teachers and admiration from peers. But ever since I started my master's program, I had lost count of how many times Kevin had torn me to pieces over everything from my thesis proposal to my drafts. My face burned with shame. Tears welled in my eyes. But online, he was always so incredibly sweet to me. He would baby me, begging for kisses and telling me how much he adored his mistress. I tried to explain, my voice trembling violently from frustration and nerves. I was just texting my boyfriend. Nobody cares and nobody wants to hear about your personal drama. Iris, Kevin cut me off coldly. If you can't separate your personal life from professional settings, you can request a transfer to another advisor. I won't supervise you anymore. Kevin wasn't just the youngest tenured professor in the department. His father owned a massive publicly traded company and held significant shares in the university. If he refused to advise me, no other professor would dare take me in for fear of offending him. I would be completely ruined. The blood drained from my face. After a long, agonizing pause, I managed to squeeze out a few words. I understand. It won't happen again. The moment we stepped out of the science building, Nadia, my senior lab partner, turned to me with deep concern. Iris, what were you thinking? Trying to video call your boyfriend right in the middle of a meeting? Because I just found out Kevin is my online boyfriend, I was losing my mind with excitement, but looking back, it was incredibly risky. I glanced around to make sure we were alone before lowering my voice. Nadia, do you think Professor Pendleton would ever date someone online? Nadia blinked, then let out a laugh. Are you serious? He's the department's untouchable, cold-hearted bachelor. He barely even talks to women. There's no way he's doing online dating. Her expression quickly turned serious. Don't tell me you believe those internet rumors about confessing to your advisor to pass your thesis. Those are just fake stories for views, Iris. Don't fall for them. He's already frustrated with you. If you pull a stunt like that, you'll never graduate. My heart sank. I had thought I struck gold, but from Kevin's perspective, it would look like deliberate harassment or revenge. After all, I had made him call me mistress, ordered him to wear a chest harness, and demanded photos of his abs. And just minutes ago, I had told him to do it for me. Oh my God, it was so embarrassing, so terrifying. He could never find out it was me. I forced a calm smile. I was just curious. I'd never actually do something like that. Nadia sighed in relief. Not long after I got back to my apartment, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Kevin. Baby, I'm free now. Should I do it for you? Oh God. The thought of Kevin, who was always so buttoned up and severe in person, suddenly stripping down for me in private was overwhelming. The contrast was wild. More importantly, he was my advisor. I didn't dare push my luck anymore. I replied, no need. Kevin panicked instantly. Why am I not attractive to you anymore? Or are you mad because I didn't do it right away?
No.
No wonder you didn't accept the money, baby.
I'm sorry.
I really am. Please just give me a chance to show you. Then came a video call request. My heart fluttered with the ringing. Maybe because he had just yelled at me so brutally, seeing him act so submissive and desperate gave me a twisted sense of satisfaction. I wanted to make him squirm a little more. I wanted to tease him, maybe even break things off after messing with him. But then I looked at the $5,200 transfer. Fine. I'll treat this like a job and keep playing along for now. But a little humiliation was definitely in order. I accepted the call. As always, we kept our faces out of the frame by mutual agreement. Baby, are you mad at me? His deep, smooth voice drifted through the speaker. I had never connected it to Kevin before, but now that I knew, the resemblance was unmistakable. Afraid he might recognize my voice, I typed my response. Not mad. Go ahead. I'm watching. Kevin let out a breath of relief. His tone turned eager. Okay, I'm starting now. I watched, unable to tear my eyes away. Kevin unbuckled his belt. A gasp escaped my lips before I could stop it, and I dropped my phone onto the bed in a panic. Even though I talked a big game online and loved reading spicy web novels to distress, I was 24, and this was the first time I had ever seen a man's. Well, let alone my advisor's. The sheer shock of it was dizzying. Kevin's voice came through, laced with worry. Baby, what happened?
Did I
scare you? I slapped my burning cheeks and declined the call. I typed back deliberately. Are you sure you're fully developed, Kevin? The male leads in the books I read are usually 12 inches. Kevin, where on earth did you read that, Kevin? Those books are pure fiction. Mine is over 8 inches, which is plenty. Honestly, I was worried you wouldn't be able to handle it. The absolute nerve of this man. My face burned even hotter. I definitely couldn't handle it.
You're too old anyway.
I prefer younger guys. Maybe I should find a college student instead. Kevin was 30, so this blow was bound to hurt. Sure enough, he immediately tried to video call again. When I declined, he sent a frantic voice note. Baby, you can't look at other men. Please, whatever you want, whatever size or shape, I can look into cosmetic procedures. I'll do anything. Please don't leave me, mistress. By the end, his voice was actually trembling. I smiled, thoroughly satisfied. Remembering I still had a thesis to revise, I decided to torture him a bit longer. We'll see how you behave. I have work to do. Kevin typed back quickly. What kind of work? Can I help you with it? He absolutely could, but I didn't dare say it. Someone called my writing total garbage. I have to rewrite the whole thing. Kevin sounded heartbroken for me. The guy has zero taste. He sounds like an absolute piece of trash. I burst out laughing. He was literally insulting himself. Baby, send me the details. I'll come handle him for you and make him apologize on his knees, right? He was just trying to trick me into meeting up. Kevin and I had met on a streaming app. I was a sleep aid streamer who never showed her face, and he was one of my subscribers. My parents wanted me to enter the workforce as soon as possible and find a decent husband while I was still young. So, I had to pursue my master's degree in secret, between earning my own tuition and living expenses and renting an apartment off campus. To keep my secret safe, I was constantly broke. Once I realized Kevin was deeply attached to me and incredibly wealthy, I started playing hard to get. I would ignore his messages or go days without streaming, claiming I was busy with private clients. Kevin would immediately send money to buy my time. I would act cold and aloof. There are plenty of guys offering me more. Why should I choose you? Kevin's voice would sound so pitiful. What do you want then? I want a loyal, obedient puppy, one that only belongs to me and calls me mistress. Kevin replied with a simple, cold, "Oh." I thought I had pushed him too far, but then he texted, "Do I need to show off a bit? Do you want to see my abs?" I figured he'd just send some stolen photo, which I didn't mind.
Yes.
Then he sent a voice note, his voice low and incredibly seductive. "I only show my girlfriend. Be my girl, and I'll do whatever you want." And just like that, we became a couple. But to me, it was just a lucrative side gig to protect myself. We agreed never to share photos of our faces or reveal our real names. Who would have guessed he was Kevin Pendleton? I replied with mock annoyance, "I'm just worried you'll show me something ugly. Don't come over. Don't bother me today, or I'll block you." Kevin went quiet as promised. I pocketed the money and put my phone away. But the moment midnight struck, as if he had been watching the clock, he sent a tearful voice message. "Baby, it's a new day now. Are you asleep? Whatever you don't like about me, I can change. I want to marry you. Please don't throw me away." A mistress shouldn't abandon her puppy. Mistress, please just reply to me. Having stayed up late to revise my thesis so I could hand it in the next morning, I had been feeling incredibly resentful. But hearing him cry about wanting to marry me was like a wave of pure sweetness. My anger evaporated. I typed, "Am I really that important to you?" Kevin's voice was raspy, but incredibly firm. "Incredibly important. You're the light of my life. Every single day of these past 2 years with you has been the happiest of my life. You mean more to me than my own life. Let's meet up. Let's get married. Let me take care of you forever." My ears burned. My heart softened. Despite his cold, critical, and arrogant attitude in real life, when I looked at his face, his wealth, his confidence, and his current needy, adorable state, I was winning at life. I happily replied, "I hear you. Let's talk about meeting up in June." I needed to get my degree in hand before showing my face. Kevin was ecstatic. The next morning, I went to the department building to hand in my draft. Kevin frowned at his monitor. "Are you sure you followed my notes on this revision?" Panic surged in my chest as I leaned closer to the screen.
Yeah.
"Is it still wrong?" Kevin's face remained expressionless, the atmosphere in his office dropping to freezing point. I nervously fidgeted with the hem of my shirt. Should I take it back and fix it again? But I don't think I know how to make it any better. Kevin glanced up at me. "Have a little faith in yourself. Let's just say the path to success is always full of setbacks." I blinked, surprised by the sudden change of tone. Was he being nice because he was anticipating our meetup? But before that tiny spark of joy could spread, Kevin threw a bucket of ice water over me. "Setbacks are fine, but you're treating this like a joke." Kevin pointed his cursor at a paragraph. "What is this section? Did an AI write this for you?" "No, I wrote it myself." "You wrote this?" Kevin let out a cold, sharp laugh. "If you hand in garbage like this next time, I won't approve you for the defense. You can just apply for an extension of your graduation." A loud buzzing filled my ears. I had taken on so much pressure keeping this master's program a secret from my parents. If I didn't graduate, these 3 years would be a complete waste. How would I explain this to myself, let alone my family? And this was the same guy who had promised to stand up for me last night, yet now he was the one driving me to the brink of insanity. I completely snapped. I slammed my hand down on his desk. "Kevin, are you seriously going to make your own wife fail her graduation?" Kevin froze, his head snapping up to look at my face. The silence that followed my outburst was so absolute that I could hear the faint rhythmic hum of the server tower under Kevin's desk. My own breath caught in my throat. The words had slipped out before my brain could stop them. Kevin froze mid-gesture. His hand, still holding the sleek silver pen he used to ruthlessly red ink my drafts, hovered millimeter thin above the wooden desk. His cold, slate-gray eyes slowly lifted from the monitor to my face. The sheer, unadulterated shock in his expression was something I had never seen before on a man who usually looked like he was carved out of marble. "What did you just say?" Kevin's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried a razor-sharp edge. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Think, Iris, think." I could try to play it off as a joke. I could say it was a slip of the tongue, that I was so stressed my brain had short-circuited. But the sheer panic in my chest was rapidly turning into a strange, desperate bravado. If I backed down now, I would still fail. I would still be kicked out of the lab, ruined, and forced to face my parents' disappointment. I took a deep breath, braced my hands on the edge of his desk, and leaned in. I whispered, keeping my voice low enough so that the students passing by the frosted glass of his office door wouldn't hear. I said, "Are you really going to fail your wife? Or should I say, your mistress, Kevin?" The effect was instantaneous. The color drained from Kevin's face, leaving him deathly pale before a violent surge of red rushed from his neck, flooding his cheeks and staining the tips of his ears a brilliant, burning crimson. The silver pen slipped from his fingers, clattering loudly against the keyboard before rolling off the desk and onto the carpet. "You." His throat clicked. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing convulsively. "Iris, that's not. You can't just." "I can't." I pulled my phone out of my pocket, unlocked it with a swipe, and pulled up our chat history. I held the screen directly in front of his face. The profile picture of the user, Rich Idiot 8-pack, stared back at him. Beneath it was the flurry of texts he had sent me just 10 minutes after he had humiliated me in the lab. "Baby, I'm in a lab meeting.
It's not convenient right now.
I'll call you later." "Okay, transfer $5,200. Puppy loves you."
Jeff.
Kevin's eyes zipped from the phone screen to my face, then back to the screen. His pupils dilated. The cool, detached demeanor of the youngest tenured professor in the university's history shattered like cheap glass. "Oh my God," he muttered, burying his face in his hands. It was a sight I never thought I'd live to see. Professor Pendleton, the ruthless, wealthy, untouchable academic who had spent the last 3 years making my life a living hell, was currently slumped in his ergonomic chair, practically vibrating with intense, soul-crushing embarrassment. "The 5th draft of my thesis is complete garbage, huh?" I said, my voice dropping into the smooth, teasing cadence I used when streaming. "A piece of trash, no talent." Kevin flinched, as if I had physically struck him. He slowly lowered his hands, looking up at me through long, dark eyelashes. The coldness was entirely gone, replaced by a desperate, pleading vulnerability that made my stomach do a wild, fluttery flip. "Mistress," he choked out, the words slipping past his lips before he could stop them. He immediately looked toward the office door, terror flashing in his eyes, and lowered his voice to a frantic whisper. "Iris, please not here." "Oh, so now you know how to speak to me nicely." I crossed my arms, feeling an intoxicating rush of power. For 3 years, this man had held my future in his hands, using his academic authority to tear down my self-esteem. Now the tables were completely turned. "You were very loud during the meeting, Professor. You told me I had no academic background. You said you didn't even want me in your lab." I didn't know," Kevin stammered, his hands trembling slightly as he gripped the edge of his desk. "If I had known it was you, I would never, I swear I would never have said those things." "But you did say them," I pointed out, leaning closer. "You humiliated me.
You made me cry.
And then you went online and begged me not to leave you, calling yourself my obedient puppy." Kevin looked like he wanted the floor to open up and swallow him whole. I will apologize. I'll apologize publicly if you want. Just please don't block me. Please don't leave me." I stared at him, my mind racing. The sheer absurdity of the situation was dizzying. My cold-blooded advisor was a submissive, desperate romantic who was so obsessed with his online mistress that he was willing to throw away his pride in a heartbeat. "We need to talk. I said, my tone shifting from teasing to serious. But not here. My senior lab partner, Nadia, is already suspicious. If anyone sees us like this, we're both finished. Kevin nodded frantically, like a drowning man thrown a life preserver.
Yes.
Yes, of course. My apartment tonight. I'll send a car for you. No cars, I countered. I know where you live. I'll take the subway. I don't want anyone in the department seeing me get into a luxury vehicle associated with you.
Right.
Intelligent, safe, Kevin muttered, his brain clearly struggling to process the massive paradigm shift. He looked up at me, his eyes wide and pleading. You won't block me before then? Promise. I let out a soft, amused sigh. The residual anger from his harsh critique was finally beginning to fade, replaced by a strange, thrilling anticipation. I won't block you, Kevin, but you'd better have a very good explanation ready for tonight. With that, I grabbed my printed draft from his desk, spun on my heel, and walked out of his office, leaving the untouchable Professor Pendleton utterly defeated in his own chair. The address Kevin sent me was a luxury high-rise penthouse in the city's most expensive district. The lobby was all polished marble, quiet elegance, and security guards who looked like they belonged in the Secret Service. When I gave my name, the concierge immediately escorted me to the private elevator, which required a special key card to access the top floor. As the elevator glided silently upward, my nerves began to kick in. Online, I was the dominant, confident mistress who ordered him around, demanded photos of his abs, and pocketed his generous transfers. In reality, I was a 24-year-old graduate student who had never even been in a serious relationship, let alone managed a wealthy, 30-year-old submissive man. What am I doing? I thought, my hands sweating against the strap of my canvas tote bag. He's my advisor. If this goes wrong, I could get expelled. But if I don't play this right, he might actually force me to extend my graduation out of spite or sheer awkwardness. The elevator doors chimed and slid open directly into a massive, open-concept living room. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a breathtaking view of the city skyline, the lights twinkling like a sea of diamonds. The decor was minimalist, modern, and incredibly expensive, heavy on dark leather, brushed steel, and abstract art. And standing right in the middle of the room, looking incredibly stiff and anxious, was Kevin. He had ditched his usual formal suit and tie. Instead, he was wearing a soft, oversized cashmere sweater in charcoal gray and dark trousers. Without his glasses, his sharp, aristocratic features looked slightly softer, but his towering 6'1" frame still commanded the room. The moment our eyes met, his shoulders tensed. He looked at me with a mixture of reverence and profound terror. "Iris," he breathed, his voice rich and deep, the exact voice that had sent shivers down my spine in countless voice notes. "Professor Pendleton," I said, deliberately using his professional title to test him. He winced, taking a hesitant step forward.
Please don't call me that.
Not here.
I don't know what to say.
I am so incredibly sorry for how I treated you in the lab. If you had known, you would have kept treating me like garbage? I asked, walking further into the penthouse. I set my tote bag down on a sleek kitchen island and turned to face him, crossing my arms. Is that how you treat all your students, Kevin? By publicly humiliating them and driving them to the brink of tears? Kevin bowed his head, his ears turning pink.
No,
I have high standards. Yes, I am demanding because the academic world is brutal, and I wanted my students to be prepared. But I admit I was particularly harsh on you, and I hate myself right now. Why were you harsh on me? I demanded, genuinely curious. He hesitated, his gaze drifting to the floor. Because you reminded me of her. I blinked. What? The way you spoke sometimes. Your stubbornness. The subtle cadence of your voice when you were frustrated, Kevin admitted, his voice barely audible. During our online calls, you typed, but during your sleep aid streams, you spoke in a very specific, soft, soothing tone. When you were angry with me online, you used short, sharp sentences. In the lab, when you were frustrated with my critiques, you used the exact same sentence structures. I didn't consciously make the connection, but my subconscious did. It made me frustrated. I thought I was projecting my feelings for my online girlfriend onto my student, and it made me angry at myself. So, I took it out on you to force a distance between us. I stared at him, dumbfounded. He had been mean to me in real life because he was trying to stop himself from falling for me because I reminded him too much of the online mistress he loved. That is the most convoluted, toxic academic coping mechanism I have ever heard, I said flatly. I know, Kevin said miserably. He took another step closer, his eyes pleading. It was inexcusable. I was a coward. I was so afraid of losing the only woman who made me feel alive that I ended up hurting her in the real world. Mistress, please punish me however you want, but please don't leave me. Seeing this powerful, wealthy man practically beg at my feet did something strange to my pulse. The contrast between his real-life status and his submissive devotion was dizzying. You want me to punish you? I asked, a slow, wicked smile creeping onto my face. Kevin's breath hitched. He nodded, his eyes fixed on my lips. Yes, anything. Fine, I said, walking over to his plush leather sofa and sitting down, crossing my legs. First of all, you're going to sit on the floor. Without a second's hesitation, the youngest tenured professor in the department sank to his knees on the thick, plush rug right in front of me. He kept his hands folded in his lap, his head bowed, waiting for my next command. Secondly, I continued, tapping my chin, you're going to read my entire thesis draft line by line, and instead of calling it garbage, you're going to patiently, kindly, and thoroughly edit it with me until it is perfect. You will not raise your voice. You will not use a condescending tone. Am I clear? Kevin looked up, a look of pure, relieved devotion shining in his eyes. Yes, mistress. I will do it. I'll rewrite the entire thing with you if you want. I'll make sure you graduate with honors. No rewriting for me. I corrected him sharply. I want to earn my degree. You are going to guide me properly. Yes, of course, I understand. And thirdly, I leaned forward, tilting his chin up with one finger. His skin was incredibly warm, and a shiver ran through him at my touch. You're going to explain to me why a handsome, obscenely wealthy man like you is spending his nights begging a faceless girl on the internet to call him a puppy. Kevin's face flushed a deeper shade of red, but he didn't pull away from my finger. Because, he whispered, his voice trembling slightly, in my world, everyone wants something from me. My father, my colleagues, the university, they all want me to be perfect. They want the ruthless genius, the perfect heir. I have to control everything, every second of every day. It's exhausting. It's a cage. He looked directly into my eyes, his gaze intense and burning. But with you, I don't have to be in control. I can just give up. I can be obedient. I can be yours. When you order me around, when you tell me what to do, it's the only time I feel completely safe. The only time I feel free. My heart swelled with a strange, unexpected warmth. I had started this online relationship purely for the money, treating it as a lucrative side gig to pay my tuition. But looking at Kevin now, seeing the raw, aching vulnerability beneath his cold exterior, I realized that to him, I had been a lifeline. Well, I said softly, my voice dropping into that sweet, comforting tone he loved so much. Your mistress is here now, Kevin, and I'm not going anywhere. A tear slipped down his cheek, and before I could react, he leaned forward, pressing his forehead gently against my knee. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you, mistress. The next morning, the sun rose over the university campus, casting a golden glow over the brick buildings. I walked into the lab feeling like a completely different person. Iris. Nadia called out the moment I stepped through the door. She rushed over, her face full of concern. Are you okay? You looked so pale yesterday after Kevin chewed you out. I was worried you were going to do something crazy.
I'm fine, Nadia.
Really? I said, offering her a reassuring smile. I just had a long talk with Professor Pendleton yesterday. We cleared some things up. Nadia blinked, looking skeptical. Cleared things up with him? He didn't threaten to expel you, did he? No, actually, I said, setting my bag down. He agreed to give me another chance. In fact, we're going to do some private tutoring sessions to get my draft up to standard. Before Nadia could reply, the door to the lab opened, and Kevin walked in. He was back in his element. Perfectly tailored navy suit, crisp white shirt, and his silver-rimmed glasses resting on his nose. His expression was cold, distant, and utterly professional. "Good morning," he said, his voice echoing through the quiet lab. "Good morning, Professor Pendleton," the other students murmured in unison, immediately straightening up at their desks. Kevin's gaze swept over the room, pausing on me for a fraction of a second. I saw the subtle, frantic flicker in his eyes, the silent, anxious puppy asking for reassurance. I gave him a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. The relief that washed over his face was so subtle that only I, who knew his secret, could have caught it. The slight tension in his shoulders melted away. "Iris," Kevin said, his voice dropping into a standard formal tone. "Please bring your materials to my office. We will begin reviewing your revisions immediately." "Yes, Professor," I said, picking up my laptop. As I followed him out of the lab, I could feel Nadia's intense, bewildered gaze burning into my back. The moment the heavy wooden door of his office clicked shut behind us, the change was instantaneous. Kevin spun around, his hands hovering in the air as if he wanted to reach out to me, but didn't dare without permission. "Mistress," he whispered, his eyes wide. "Did I do okay? Was my tone all right in front of the others?" "You did perfectly, Kevin," I said, walking over to his desk and putting my laptop down. "But keep your voice down. The walls aren't entirely soundproof."
Right.
He immediately pulled his chair out for me, dusting it off with unnecessary care. "Please sit. I've prepared some notes on your thesis." I stayed up until 4 a.m. breaking down the core methodology so I could explain it to you in a way that makes sense. I sat down, looking up at him in surprise. "You stayed up until 4 a.m.? But you have lectures today." "It doesn't matter," Kevin said quickly, pulling up a smaller stool and sitting right next to my chair, keeping himself slightly lower than me. "Your degree is the most important thing. I was a fool to ever doubt your potential. Your writing isn't garbage, Iris. It's just raw. You have brilliant ideas, but you struggle with the academic formatting and the rigid structure. I'm going to help you channel that." For the next 3 hours, Kevin was the perfect advisor. He didn't yell. He didn't scoff. When I made a mistake, he gently guided me to the correct answer, asking probing questions that allowed me to figure it out myself. His intellect was staggering. Watching his mind work up close, without the barrier of his usual arrogance, was mesmerizing. He was brilliant, patient, and incredibly dedicated. "Oh, I see," I exclaimed as a difficult statistical concept finally clicked in. So the control group wasn't the issue. It was the covariance variable. "Exactly," Kevin said, his face lighting up with a proud, breathtaking smile. "You see, I told you were brilliant, Iris. You just needed the right guidance." Our eyes met, and the academic atmosphere suddenly charged with a thick, heavy tension. He was sitting so close to me that I could smell his cologne, a subtle, expensive blend of sandalwood and rain. His eyes drifted down to my lips, his breath catching. "Kevin," I whispered, my heart starting to race. "Mistress," he murmured, leaning in slightly, his gaze full of desperate longing. Knock, knock. We both jumped, pulling away from each other instantly. Kevin scrambled back onto his stool, his face turning bright red as he quickly adjusted his glasses and grabbed a random stack of papers. "Come in," he called out, his voice slightly higher than usual. The door opened and Professor Harrison, the head of the department and a close associate of Kevin's father, walked in. He was an older, pompous man who had never liked me, mostly because I didn't come from a wealthy, influential family like the other students. "Kevin," Harrison said, ignoring me entirely. "I was hoping to catch you. I wanted to discuss the upcoming funding allocation for the master's program." He finally glanced at me, his eyes narrowing. "Why is this student in your office? Isn't she the one you were complaining about yesterday? The one who is likely to fail her defense?" My grip tightened on my laptop. Kevin stood up, his posture instantly turning rigid and imposing. The soft, submissive puppy vanished, replaced by the powerful, cold air of the Pendleton estate. "Professor Harrison," Kevin said, his voice dropping into a chilling, commanding register. "You are misinformed. Iris is currently undergoing rigorous revision sessions with me. Her research is highly innovative, and I have complete confidence in her ability to pass her defense with distinction." Harrison blinked, clearly taken aback by Kevin's defensive tone. "With distinction? But Kevin, you said yourself just yesterday." "Yesterday, I was testing her resilience." Kevin cut him off smoothly, his eyes flashing with a dangerous light, and she passed. "Her dedication is exemplary. I suggest you focus your attention on your own students, Harrison. If I hear anyone in this department spreading rumors about Iris's academic standing, I will personally review their funding proposals with my father's foundation." The threat was subtle, but it hit like a sledgehammer. Harrison's face turned pale. Everyone knew the Pendleton Foundation funded more than half of the department's high-tech equipment. Of course, Kevin, I didn't mean to imply." Harrison stammered, backing away. "I'll leave you to your work." He quickly closed the door behind him. I stared at Kevin, my heart fluttering wildly in my chest. He had just threatened the head of the department to protect me. Kevin turned back to me, the fierce, powerful aura instantly melting away as he looked at me anxiously. Was that okay, mistress? Did I defend you properly?" I couldn't help it. I burst out laughing, a wide, happy grin spreading across my face. "You were amazing, Kevin," I said, standing up and wrapping my arms around his neck. He froze, his body going stiff with shock, before his arms slowly, hesitantly wrapped around my waist, pulling me tight against his broad chest. He buried his face in my hair, inhaling deeply. "I'll protect you from everyone, Iris," he whispered fiercely. "No one will ever hurt you again. I swear." Over the next month, my life turned into a whirlwind of academic rigor and secret romance. During the day, Kevin was my strict but fair advisor. We worked tirelessly on my thesis, rewriting sections, conducting new experiments, and refining the data. Under his tutelage, my understanding of the subject skyrocketed. I wasn't just surviving the program anymore, I was thriving. But during the evenings, the dynamic flipped. We spent our nights at his penthouse. Sometimes we would study with Kevin sitting on the floor at my feet, resting his head on my knee while I read aloud from academic journals. Other times, the tension became too much to bear. I remember one Friday night after we had finished a grueling 12-hour editing session. I was lying on his sofa, exhausted, my feet resting in his lap. Kevin was gently massaging my tired feet, his hands incredibly warm and strong. "Mistress," he murmured, his eyes fixed on mine, "you've worked so hard. I'm so proud of you." "I had a good teacher," I said, smiling sleepily. "As for my defense, what if the committee asks something I don't know?" "They won't," Kevin said firmly, his thumb rubbing soothing circles over my arch. "You know this material inside and out now. You are ready, and I will be there right by your side." He leaned forward, his face inches from mine. The physical attraction between us had been building like a pressure cooker. We had shared soft kisses, desperate embraces, but we hadn't crossed the final line yet. I wanted to wait until my graduation was secured to keep some boundary between my academic life and our private world. And Kevin, ever the obedient puppy, respected my boundaries completely, never pushing for more than I was willing to give. He pressed a soft, lingering kiss to my forehead, then to the tip of my nose. "I love you, Iris," he whispered. "Not just as my mistress. As you. The real you." My heart swelled. "I love you too, Kevin." But our peaceful bubble was about to be shattered. The week before my defense, the department was thrown into chaos. A highly sensitive dataset from our lab's main project, the very dataset my thesis relied on, was leaked online. I arrived at the lab on Monday morning to find Nadia and the other students gathered around a computer screen, whispering frantically. "What's going on?" I asked, a bad feeling settling in my stomach. Nadia turned to me, her face pale. "Iris, look at this." Someone uploaded our lab's core data to a public forum last night. The university is launching an investigation. They think it was an inside job to sabotage the department. My blood ran cold. An inside job? Yes, Nadia whispered. And the IP address of the uploader was traced to the off-campus apartment complex where you live. My heart stopped.
What? No.
That's impossible. I would never. I know you wouldn't, Nadia said quickly, grabbing my hands. But Professor Harrison is already using this. He's claiming you leaked the data because you were struggling with your thesis and wanted to delay the defense, or because you wanted to hurt Kevin's reputation. Before I could defend myself, the lab door banged open. 2 campus security officers stood there, accompanied by Professor Harrison. Harrison had a smug, triumphant grin on his face. Iris Lynn, Harrison said loudly, ensuring everyone in the room heard. You are officially suspended pending an investigation into the data leak. Please pack your things and leave the premises immediately. Your thesis defense is cancelled.
No.
I cried, panic coursing through my veins. I didn't do this. I swear. The evidence speaks for itself, Harrison sneered. Your IP address. Your desperate academic standing. It all adds up. Security, escort her out. Wait. A booming voice shattered the tension. Kevin stepped into the lab, his eyes blazing with a fury so intense that even Harrison recoiled. What is the meaning of this, Harrison? Kevin demanded, his voice dangerously low. Kevin, your student has leaked the department's data, Harrison said, trying to maintain his authority. The IP address matches her residence. I am suspending her. You have no authority to suspend my student without a formal hearing from the academic board, Kevin said, stepping in front of me, shielding me from the security guards. And as the principal investigator of this project, I am the one who manages the data security. I know for a fact that Iris did not leak this data. How can you be so sure? Harrison challenged. Are you letting your personal feelings blind you, Kevin? Word on the street is you've been spending a lot of private time with her. The lab went dead silent. The other students stared at us, gasping. Kevin didn't blink. He took a step closer to Harrison, his towering frame casting a dark shadow over the older man. If you are accusing me of unprofessional conduct, Harrison, I suggest you bring it to the Board of Trustees, along with the records of your own financial discrepancies in the department's equipment budget over the last 5 years. Harrison gasped, his face turning a sickly shade of green. You wouldn't dare. Try me, Kevin whispered, his voice like dry ice. Now get out of my lab, both of you, and take these guards with you. Harrison, realizing he was completely outmatched and that Kevin held all the cards, scrambled out of the room, dragging the security officers with him. The moment they were gone, the lab erupted into quiet whispers. Kevin turned to me, his eyes full of deep concern, but he kept his professional distance for the sake of the other students. Iris, come to my office, he said quietly. The moment the office door closed, I collapsed into a chair, burying my face in my hands. The tears I had been holding back finally spilled over. It's over, I sobbed. Even if I didn't do it, the suspicion is enough. They'll cancel my defense. My parents, my 3 years of hard work. It's all gone. Kevin was by my side in an instant. He knelt on the floor beside my chair, wrapping his strong arms around me, pulling me close. Shh, baby, look at me, he pleaded, his voice thick with emotion. It's not over. I won't let it be over. I will find out who did this. I promise you. But how? I asked, wiping my eyes. The IP address matched my apartment complex. Anyone in that building could have used the shared Wi-Fi, or someone could have spoofed it. Spoofing, Kevin muttered, his eyes narrowing as his brilliant mind began to analyze the situation. Exactly. It's a classic framing technique. The leak happened last night at 11 p.m. Iris. Where were you last night at 11 p.m.? I was with you, I said, blinking. Exactly. In my penthouse, a slow, dangerous smile spread across Kevin's face. You have a perfect, airtight alibi. You were with me, using my private, highly secure network. There is no physical way you could have initiated that upload from your apartment's IP address unless you had set up a remote access Trojan, which I know you don't have the technical expertise to do. But we can't tell them I was with you. I panicked. If the university finds out we're dating, they'll invalidate my degree anyway for conflict of interest. We don't have to tell them, Kevin said gently, brushing a tear from my cheek. We just need to find the real culprit, and I have a pretty good idea of who it is. He stood up, walking over to his computer. He pulled up the department's internal server logs. Only 3 people have access to the master database containing that raw data, Kevin explained, his fingers flying across the keyboard. Myself, Professor Harrison, and the senior student manager who maintains the server. My eyes widened. Nadia. Yes, Kevin said quietly. Let's look at the access logs for last night. He clicked through several security protocols, bypass codes, and directories. After a tense few minutes, a log appeared on the screen. Access granted. User _Nadia _L _22:45 p.m. No, I whispered, shaking my head. No, Nadia wouldn't do that. She's my friend. She's been helping me. Iris, who is the one who pointed out the IP address match to you this morning? Kevin asked gently, looking at me with a soft, sympathetic gaze. Who is the one who sowed the seeds of doubt in the lab? The pieces of the puzzle suddenly fell into place. Nadia's constant warnings about Kevin, her concern that seemed a little too intense, her subtle attempts to discourage me from pursuing my defense. She was a 6th-year master's student who had been struggling to finish her own research while I, a younger student, was suddenly on track to graduate with distinction under the department's star professor. She was jealous. Let's check her terminal, Kevin said, his voice hardening. He used his administrator privileges to access Nadia's lab terminal remotely. Within minutes, he found the traces of the VPN software she had used to spoof my apartment's IP address. She had made a critical mistake. She had left the configuration files on her local drive. We have her, Kevin said, a cold, triumphant light in his eyes. What do we do now? I asked, my heart pounding. We wait, Kevin said, turning to me with a reassuring smile. Your defense is in 3 days. We will present this evidence directly to the academic board. During the pre-defense meeting, Harrison and Nadia won't know what hit them. He walked over to me, taking my hands in his. Trust me, mistress, your puppy has everything under control. The day of my thesis defense arrived. The atmosphere in the grand presentation hall was thick with tension. The defense committee sat at a long mahogany table at the front of the room. Professor Harrison sat in the center looking smug, while the other committee members looked grave. Nadia was sitting in the gallery watching me with a mask of sympathetic concern that made me feel physically ill. I stood at the podium, my presentation slides projected on the massive screen behind me. Wearing a sharp professional blazer, my hair pulled back, I looked calm, but inside I was a bundle of nerves. Before we begin the candidate's presentation, Harrison said, his voice echoing through the microphone, I must bring a serious matter to the committee's attention. Iris Lynn is currently under investigation for a major data leak. I move that this defense be postponed indefinitely and the student be formally expelled. A murmur of agreement ran through the committee members. I object. A deep, commanding voice rang out. Kevin stood up from his seat at the side of the hall. He walked to the front, holding a sleek silver flash drive. Professor Pendleton, Harrison sneered. We have already discussed this. The IP address. The IP address was spoofed, Kevin interrupted smoothly, plugging his flash drive into the main podium computer. And I have the digital forensics to prove it. With a few clicks, the massive screen behind me changed. Instead of my thesis slides, it displayed the server logs, the VPN configuration files, and the remote access history. Last night, with the help of the university's IT security division, we conducted a thorough audit of the server logs, Kevin announced, his voice projecting with absolute authority. The data leak did not originate from Iris Lynn's apartment. It was initiated from Terminal 4 in the main lab, a terminal assigned exclusively to Nadia. A collective gasp echoed through the hall. Nadia stood up in the gallery, her face turning pale as paper. That's a lie. I didn't do it. The MAC address of the terminal, the security token used, and the VPN logs all match your personal credentials, Nadia, Kevin said, his eyes locking onto her with a freezing, merciless glare. You spoofed Iris's IP address in an attempt to frame her and sabotage her graduation. He turned his icy gaze to the older man, who was now sweating profusely. And Professor Harrison, you bypassed standard university protocols to initiate an immediate suspension without verification in a clear abuse of power. I have already submitted this evidence to the Board of Trustees and the Dean of Science. A formal inquiry into your conduct and Nadia's expulsion is currently being drafted. Nadia collapsed back into her seat, bursting into tears. Harrison looked like he was about to have a heart attack as he sank back into his chair, utterly defeated. The head of the committee, a respected senior professor, cleared his throat. The evidence is clear. Nadia, please leave the hall. Security is waiting for you outside. Professor Harrison, you are recused from this committee effective immediately. Please step down. With Harrison and Nadia gone, the atmosphere in the room cleared like a passing storm. The head of the committee turned to me, offering a warm smile. Well, Miss Lin, it seems your name has been thoroughly cleared. If you are ready, please begin your presentation. I looked at Kevin. He was standing near the edge of the stage, looking up at me. His eyes were bright, full of pride, love, and a silent, cheering adoration. You can do this, mistress, his eyes seemed to say. I took a deep breath, smiled, and clicked to my first slide. Thank you, esteemed members of the committee. Today I am proud to present my research on. For the next 45 minutes, I spoke with a confidence I didn't know I possessed. I answered every question with precision, clarity, and deep understanding. The years of hard work, the grueling late-night sessions, and Kevin's patient guidance all culminated in this moment. When I finished, the committee stepped out to deliberate. They returned just 5 minutes later. Congratulations, Iris Lin, the head of the committee announced, his voice warm. Your thesis has been approved with highest honors. You have officially passed your defense. The room erupted into applause. I stood there, tears of pure joy spilling over my eyelashes. I had done it. I had survived the program. I was graduating. That evening, the celebration at Kevin's penthouse was quiet, intimate, and perfect. The coffee table was covered in takeout boxes from my favorite cheap noodle place, a humorous contrast to the luxury surroundings, but Kevin had insisted we eat whatever I wanted. I was sitting on the sofa, holding my official graduation approval letter in my hands, staring at it as if it might vanish. Still don't believe it? Kevin asked, walking over from the kitchen. He had shed his professor persona completely. He was wearing his soft cashmere sweater, and his hair was slightly messy. He set down 2 glasses of champagne and sat down on the floor at my feet, resting his arms on my knees, looking up at me with that beautiful puppy dog devotion. I really did it, I whispered, setting the letter down and looking into his slate-gray eyes. I graduated. And it's all thanks to you. My breath hitched. Kevin. He opened the box, revealing a stunning, elegant diamond ring that caught the light of the city skyline. Iris, he said, his voice deep, rich, and trembling with raw emotion. I know our beginning was unconventional. I know I was a fool and a coward and that I don't deserve you. But these past few months have been the happiest of my life. You are my light, my mistress, my partner, my entire world. He looked up at me, his eyes shining with a desperate, beautiful love. Will you do me the ultimate honor? Will you marry me, Iris? Will you let me be your puppy, your husband, and your partner forever? I looked at the ring, then at this powerful, brilliant, wealthy man who was currently looking at me as if I held the keys to the universe. I thought about our late-night study sessions, his fierce defense of me in the lab, and the sweet, submissive warmth of his heart. I leaned forward, wrapping my arms around his neck, pulling him up onto the sofa with me. Yes, Kevin, I whispered against his lips. I will marry you. He let out a choked sound of pure joy and captured my lips in a deep, passionate kiss. His hands, strong and warm, wrapped around my waist, pulling me flush against his chest. For the first time, there were no barriers, no secrets, no professional boundaries between us. We were just two people who had found their perfect, matching halves in the most unexpected way. As we finally broke apart, both of us breathless and smiling, Kevin slid the gorgeous ring onto my finger. He looked at it, then up at me, a playful, wicked glint returning to his eyes. "So," he murmured, his voice dropping into that low, seductive register. "Now that you've graduated and we're officially engaged, does this mean I get my reward, mistress?" I laughed, a rich, happy sound, and ran my fingers through his soft hair. "Well, puppy," I teased, "I suppose you've been a very good boy. Let's see how well you can behave tonight." Kevin's eyes darkened with a thrilling, desperate hunger, and he pulled me down into another deep, breathless kiss as the city lights twinkled outside, painting our future in brilliant golden hues.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to support our content. Tag us on any story you want us to upload. We will do our best to satisfy you.